viewers, we are live right now, and this is the Gray Area, and this is your boy Ray E.
This is your boy P. Wills.
This is Aaron Williamson.
Aaron Williamson's in the building, y'all. We have attorney Aaron Williamson here, and we have some very important discussions surrounding what you do when you encounter officers, and the climate of community police is real high right now. The officers are in a frenzy. Some of them are still on edge because of the heightened intensity behind, racial division. That's coming from all different aspects of whether it be politics, whether it be, police interactions, so many different things. Kaepernick, you name it. So what we hope to do today is to give our viewers and those out there who are encountering officers some information that they could use in regards to law, their rights, what to do to make it home safely. Has nothing to do with giving up your pride or spirit or rights. It's simply, and I won't give them all the good stuff, but I'll let you go into how you guys started focusing on this subject here. You have an event coming up October the 5th, titled Police Interaction and Accountability Community Forum Program. Who's invited to this forum?
Yes. Let me start off by saying a day at Dinner Relay was unable to make it today because he work called him away. He was traveling to New York, so he wasn't able to make it back in time. And then Corey Scott wished he could be here with us, but he has a scheduling conflict towards the end of the day, and so wasn't able to make it. So trying to represent for everybody, gonna try to carry that.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
You're carrying the
torch. Yeah, man, you got it.
So to start off with, the event we're going to have on October 5th, 2017 from 6 to 8 at the Indianapolis Urban League is being hosted by the Indiana State Bar Association, specifically the Diversity Committee.
Okay.
It came about actually because my friend today, he reached out to a group of attorneys who went to law school together probably about a year ago, and he said, hey, there's a lot of stuff going on even now, and we should have a conversation about this. And we had a conversation, and like most people, work kind of got in the way and really didn't get to make much hay of it.
Yeah.
Probably around April or so, I started in with the Indiana State Bar Association Diversity Committee.
Yep.
And it's in that role that I said, hey, this is a perfect venue. Let me reach back out, start this conversation again.
Right.
So between Ade and I, we just really started talking about, okay, well, what could we put together? What could we do? Because he works in business litigation and white-collar crime.
Okay.
I work in business litigation, class action, personal injury. So this really ain't in either one of our bailiwicks, but it was like, hey, somebody got to stand up and do something, why not us?
It sounds like us over here.
Right.
Yeah.
When you say litigation, can you dig into some definitions and understand? Because there's a lot of viewers who won't understand the language of attorneys, but they'll understand exactly where you're coming from. You just break it down for them.
Yeah, litigation, like the definition or whatever.
Yeah, so my guy, criminal, white-collar crime, he does a lot of securities violations, so think of corporate individuals who engage in criminal conduct.
Right.
He defends them.
Right.
And then for me, I do a lot of business litigation, so you got two companies suing each other for breach of contracts, insurance companies, things of that sort, class action. Think of the Anthem data breach, the Equifax data breach, things like that.
Yeah.
So we work in those areas.
Okay. And but you guys seeing a direct need for
some like
this.
criminal law stuff.
Right, absolutely.
So
why aren't the criminal lawyers stepping up and doing this kind of stuff?
When I say one of the attorneys we have on the panel, Corey Scott, he actually is a criminal defense attorney.
Okay.
And then we have Professor Fran Watson. She's a professor at at the law school here, IU Robert H. McKinney School of Law.
Which law school did you go to?
McKinney School of Law. That's where I connected with her.
Okay.
And she does innocent project work. So think of the national stuff. You hear about DNA clearing people. She does that on the local level. So definitely there are people out there getting involved in this topic, and they were happy to join this event. But when we got back together and I was in the avenue of being the vice chair, I said, all right, let's pull some people together. You reach your contacts, I'll reach out to my contacts. What could we put together that would be informative and not just a conversation, but that would move the ball forward.
Okay.
So came up with this. The event is going to basically be broken into 3 parts. The first part is introductory comments. Here is a staff attorney from the American Civil Liberties Union, Jan Menez. He's going to give probably about a 15-minute introduction about the law.
Okay.
Searches and seizures.
Okay.
Get this right here. Recording officers.
Okay.
Searches and seizures and use of force.
Okay.
So you got a lot of people out there with cameras right now saying, okay, well, this looks like it might go sideways.
Right.
Let me get
Right.
this on film.
Right.
Well, what are your rights with that, with regard to that conduct? If a cop comes up to you and says, give me your phone, do you have to? If he says, move on, well, this is a dangerous area, do you have to? So these are the conversations we're going to have at that event.
Okay.
Searches and seizures. If a cop comes up to you and says, identify yourself, do you have an obligation to? If he starts patting you down, does he have a right to do that? How do you stop encounters?
Right.
How do you know if this encounter is voluntary or if you're being detained or if you're being arrested?
Right.
And at each one of those stages, what do you do? How do you preserve your rights? So again, these are the conversations we're going to have. He's going to kind of start us off.
Okay.
And then we're going to have a panel discussion. The panelists are, in our minds, the perfect section of how these interactions go from start to finish. So you got the chief of police,
Okay.
Brian Roach. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to make it, so he's going to send his assistant. Let me get that title right. Assistant Chief Taylor.
Okay.
Very informative guy. Actually had opportunity and honor to meet him this morning.
Okay.
He'll be able to speak to IMPD protocol. And then you'll have people like Fran Watson. She'll be able to speak to the law. And then you'll have people like Dr. David Hampton. He'll be able to speak to community perspective.
Okay.
Now, that's the interaction. Say it goes sideways. What do you do next? Well, one of the people we have on the panel is the executive director of the Citizens Complaint Board, Lori D. White.
Okay.
And she's going to be able to speak to, okay, well, if you make a complaint, what do you do? What does that process look like? So when we're doing this, let me make sure I didn't miss nobody. And then Corey L. Scott, he's a defense attorney. So if it really goes sideways and you got to sue somebody, he might be somebody or somebody like that you want to reach out to. So really trying to envision, okay, well, what's the process look like, and who are the voices that can speak to these pieces of the process?
Yeah, I mean, you have people, that feel as though it was a waste of time to even try to bridge a gap with law enforcement, with the racial tension that's going on now. I mean, do you think that's really possible to, bridge that gap and, get the community men to come out and be involved?
I'm hoping. So I've always been big on, you set the table, you invite people out, and the people who come are going to come. And it might take a couple tries to really get that critical mass, but when they see that what you're doing works, they're going to be drawn to it.
Right.
So right now, the first thing is, let me figure out what the law is. Let me figure out my baseline. Let me figure out if whatever the law is, if it's being applied the way it's supposed to be applied.
Right.
And then if it is being applied the way it's supposed to be applied and it's still falling apart, I'm getting some nonsense outcomes. Let me figure out how to change the system. It can't, and a lot of people want to jump to that last part. Let me change the system. You don't even know what the system is. So this is going to be that introductory course of here's the law. Let's see how it plays out. Let's see who we need to talk to and how we need to change it up, if we need to change it up. If you have a couple of people saying, yeah, that worked out for me, I think that's where you really start getting that buy-in.
Okay.
Right. Wow. So, I mean, like I was stating earlier, the interaction between community and police is at an all-time high right now. As you were saying earlier, people are pulling out phones. Everybody's becoming an investigator and a detective to everything that's happening. What is your advice to the people who are trying to do this? And I know you guys are going to talk a lot about this at the community forum, which is why people should come. But for those people who can't make it, who are tuning in live, like, can we have some discussion surrounding what people need to do in those situations? Because I think the problem is like a lot of people are definitely ignorant to what they should do, but they're seeing what other people are doing on Facebook, which is grabbing a phone and recording. And now they're saying, I got you, I'm recording everything. They don't really know what happened. They don't know if the suspect, but this is where we are. Like, it's and I'm not faulting them for that. I'm saying, like, because of the non-accountability that goes with some of the interactions out there that has happened that has caused a lot of heat and different in big cities like Ferguson and Baltimore, because there seems to be no accountability. People are taking it upon themselves to start filming this. So what must a person do? You know, when they see something that looks sideways.
Oh yeah. All right. So now the law varies state to state, and then even within different communities in Indiana it varies. But let's use Indianapolis because that's where we're at. You have the right to record officers. It's a First Amendment right to actually record the officers.
Okay.
That's not an unlimited right though. It's subject to time, place, and manner restrictions. Really, what you want to think about that, how you want to think about that is this. If there is a crime going on, if there are public safety issues, the officers can say, hey, I need you to back up. I need you to clear this area because you're creating more issues and you're benefiting
So
situations.
if the crowd is getting closer and they're hammering down on the officer, he really can't see what's happening, that's room for him to
back people up.
Right.
Now, you can't just say, clear the area, I don't want you to record. It has to be a legitimate public safety concern. And even with that public safety concern, there's limits to how far back they can push you.
Right.
I'm not going to go into a lot of the nuance on that, but just remember, you have a right to record as a general matter, but it's not an unlimited right. If the officer gives you a command, ask yourself, can I still get done what I need to get done? And if I can, just comply. You can get really good footage off of a zoom in on your phone, just like if you were standing right up on them.
Right,
so
right. With the quality of these phones today,
exactly.
you can do a whole
you
lot.
got a whole lot of zoom right there. So
without being in the space, in the literal space.
Exactly. Because that way, then you got a stronger argument if they come after you later on, saying, "Hey, wait a minute, I complied with you. I was in a good area, and you were just trying to shut me down. And you don't have the right to do that."
Has there been cases though where someone used video and was arrested because they were, I'm sure they found a reason to arrest the person because you can't arrest them for recording. But has there been a situation where somebody was arrested, they were recording, and the officer got agitated, so they arrested him, locked him up, and then, what happens in that instant? Is that a dropped charge or what?
So let's see here. I'm not gonna get all the specifics of it, but it was King v. some law enforcement agency.
Okay.
Guy was outside, saw something happening in his neighborhood, took it upon himself to record the incident. He was intoxicated, got a little rowdy at the cop, disorderly conduct. Went on his neighbor's property, recorded the situation. Officer came over, said, "Hey, give me the phone. I think you've recorded evidence, and I want that phone. I'm gonna confiscate the phone."
Oh.
Got into a tussle, another issue.
Right.
Got arrested. He was brought up on 3 different charges, ultimately acquitted of those charges, and then he sued. Court came back and said, I'm not really sure about some of these things, but other areas, you have a First Amendment right to record the officers in the context of this encounter.
Right.
It seems pretty clear that the officer was trying to shut you down as opposed to try to clear the area and make it safe. He ended up getting a $200,000 award.
Wow.
So
so there is some accountability there.
You're absolutely,
and that's what people need to hear, and what people are asking for, because you shouldn't be afraid to record something. I mean, that's just. I got body cams on. Y'all can record, so other people should be able to record as well.
Absolutely.
Now, I do feel like there should be a way that you should record so that you're not directly in the officer's space and causing confusion and chaos and screaming and all that. Because at the end of the day, regardless of you yelling and screaming at that officer in that moment, it's either gonna go left or go south. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not gonna be a good situation. So getting a safe place and get in a position where you can zoom in and get what's going on, as opposed to being right up on the,
Exactly.
That's hard to see anyway when you're right up on somebody. So
Right. I mean, just don't give the officer a reason. I won't say an excuse. Don't give him a reason to try to change the circumstance. Let him do his job. Let him focus on what he or she is trying to do, but you still have the right to record that situation.
Right.
So just do the dance. I mean, one thing about this event, the overall theme of the event, is if you consider it a dance, how do you do the dance better where everyone gets home safely with their dignity intact? And there's a way where you can accommodate one another, still achieve your objective, but not make it more difficult or unnecessarily difficult for the people involved.
That makes sense.
It does.
So the climate of like, okay, so Aaron Bailey, I'm very familiar with that case in the city. It's a big, becoming something bigger. You know, there's teams and organizations really fighting to get these officers charged and get some accountability. We hang on to stuff like that and want accountability because it's rare that it happens. And when you get some accountability, then that puts fear in some officers' hearts to say, you know what, I better make sure that I'm doing the right thing. If these officers get off for this, you know, as like some of the other ones that have been happening, you got to prepare for that too. So in your experience, what do you think you feel is going to happen with this case? Not that you know all of the details or whatever, you ain't, or that you're, you know, speaking for officers, but what do you think needs to happen in order for us to be to think differently, you know, when it comes to the officer community interaction? You know, because I think that overall we're just looking for accountability, and to say, and for the officers to say, yes, they were wrong, and they're going to face penalties for that, and it'd be done. You know, but the problem is there's always so many things surrounding that get thrown in the air, and then you have you know, what the officers said, what happened before the officers got there, what happened after the officers got there, what evidence is collected, you know, all these different things that come into play. And like we seen with the OJ, a lot of things change when it comes to trying to figure out the evidence. In your experience, what do you think is going on with this case, and what will happen?
Okay, so a couple things. One, I want to say I'm not here as a representative of IMPD or any law enforcement agency. I'm not here even in the capacity of representing the law firm I work at. It's just I'm here, so throwing that out there. Also, don't have any knowledge outside of what the general community has on the topic. As a lawyer, one thing we're trained to do is really sit back, evaluate, and assess all the evidence available, and then make a determination. And I know where I'm at presently. I just don't have that information to say as relates specifically to this case how it should come out. Now, what I will say is this: as a general matter, what I'd like to see is the evidence, unless there's some strong reason to withhold it, being made available to the general public. And that way, it's not something where we're basing it off of a he said, she said when one of those parties is not even available because they're not alive. That's first. And then second, I want to make sure that to the extent possible, the law is applied both for civilians or citizens as it is with officers. And that means if somebody had a defense as a citizen, why shouldn't they have that defense just because they're an officer? And vice versa. You shouldn't get extra privileges just because you're a police officer. I will say, and probably should have said this earlier, officers have a difficult job. And the vast majority of them are good men and women just trying to do their job, trying to keep the community safe. And we should applaud them for that.
Absolutely.
That said, there are officers who, for one reason or another, might exceed or abuse their authority. And we need to hold those officers to account. We were talking off radio about where even if it's not something as severe or serious as this case, where there's a death involved, if you repeatedly violate the public trust, even in just being in civil, you shouldn't keep your job for very long. There should be some process in play. And kind of getting a little off track here, but I want to tie this point up. Whatever those processes are, or if you have several complaints because you're being rude, you're using excessive force, you should ultimately be removed from the force, and we should know what that process is. So now bringing it back here. I don't know enough about the details to say what should happen to those officers, but I do know enough to say whatever the process is, whatever the procedure is for evaluating this conduct and determining whether they keep their job or not, it's not public enough. And that's one of the things we want to do with this event, is make it clear what that process is.
Do you think, you know, most civilians, or some at least, they jump to conclusions before gaining all the facts?
I mean, it's human nature. You see enough, and then you fill in the gaps, and you might already have a bias about where this outcome should be, and you just go there. So, I mean, it's human nature. It's just something we, with information, hope we can battle back against and get everybody on a more even playing field.
Good answer. So searches and seizures and we could probably tie this into the use of force. So, for searches and seizures, and you guys will go deep into this when you have the community forum. Can you explain why that is an important part of the community forum?
Yeah, so, and I've had a couple experiences just as a young man before I went to law school. I'll throw out two. One, came into my apartment, there was a common area, somebody been smoking weed. I'll jump in the shower, my girl's in the living room, cop knocks on the door. I'm in the shower. Now I heard movement and noise. My girl was being nosy, trying to figure out who's at the door.
Right, for sure.
So he banging on the door. I jump out, run to the door, open it up. Like, hey, I'm in the shower. What's up? He's like, I smell weed. It's coming from your apartment. Your lease allows me to search your apartment.
Oh,
I
man.
knew enough even back then that wasn't right. So I'm like, no, I'm good. I ain't gonna let you come in here. But I haven't been smoking. We had a conversation about 5 minutes. He's flexing, and ultimately it came to, he kind of realized, hey, I really was in the shower. I wasn't trying to destroy evidence, and I knew my rights enough where he wasn't getting in this apartment.
Right, for sure.
So being able to assert your rights in those situations is important because that's how you preserve your rights.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's say it went a different way. Let's say he actually searched my house, because I had that happen before where I'm driving, had my lights off, pulled over, big long story, ends up in, did not consent to a search, but the officer searched my vehicle.
Okay.
And you have those two bookends where in both circumstances I said no. One circumstance, it ended there. The other circumstance, it didn't end there. And the question is, either way, what are my rights and how do I effectuate them? Well, you can make a complaint with the Internal Affairs Board. You can make a complaint here in Indianapolis with the Citizens Complaint Board. But what really happens after that? Well, that's what this forum is going to be talking about in part. You make a complaint. What's the process? Is there something else I can do?
Right.
So really trying to have that dialogue.
Right. Is it fair to say that if you don't know the law, if you don't know your rights, that you should comply with everything that the officer? Because this is the problem. Like, a lot of people are ignorant to their rights. Mm-hmm. They only know what they see on Facebook and what they, and the things that are happening, which is normal, as most people. Nobody expects to be harassed or pulled over or, nobody's expecting that on a daily basis. So when they generally see something happening on Facebook and somebody's recording something, they kind of take on that action. Mm-hmm. Like, why you pulled me over? You don't have the right to do this. But if you don't know the law, then you can't probably enforce that. Mm-hmm. So is it safe to say that if you don't know the law when you're encountering officers, you should comply?
I would say yes and no. Okay. So what I would say is there are some basic things that most people pick up from TV, like, hey, I got the right to remain silent. I got consent to no warrant searches, things like that. Do that.
Right.
But that said, if the officer persists, let it play out. You do not consent to warrantless search, but if you're going to do it anyway, what I'm going to do, I'm going to fight you.
Right.
I guarantee you that's going inside. That's going to go.
It's going to go a different way. You're going to have about 5 or 6 other cars roll up.
Absolutely. So assert your right, let it play out, and then do what you got to do after the fact.
Right.
One of my big statements is cops are king on the street. You're king in court. Do not try to have a fight with them on the street because you was not going to win that fight.
Right. And it often doesn't end well.
Exactly.
So, and then they can use that.
Oh, absolutely.
That actually, when you encounter officers and you're being rude and stuff, it doesn't make it any better for you to go back at them. It's almost like, well, you had an option as well. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that you can't check an officer for disrespecting you, but I would rather know the law and understand what I'm saying rather than just to go at them, because I think that's the problem.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people are going at officers without saying the right thing, and then that's where now you get arrested. Now you better because it's almost taken as a blatant disrespect.
Right.
So.
And if I could very quickly, so I love stories and I got a lot of them
from
my past.
Good,
so I'm speeding. They already got me for that, so I was speeding. Saw the cop a couple blocks off, slowed down. He radar. I'm like, dude, I know you didn't get me. I saw you too soon. It was like, okay. So he walks around the car. And I'm being a little mouthy. I was young.
You sure?
And I'm like, I know you ain't get me. You walked around my car. You ain't see nothing, did you? He was like, back and forth.
Right.
And he looks at my registration, and back then you had to sign it, and I didn't have a sign.
Oh, man.
And he had this big old Chester smile on his face, like, that'd be like $100 ticket.
Right.
And the point of the story is cops are humans too. And you can have a civil conversation with them, even if it goes sideways on the end, you should still be polite, because in that position, you the one going to pay. I ended up paying the extra $100 because I was
Right.
trying to mouth off to him.
Yeah, it goes to not knowing what's going on and not being aware. You know what I'm saying? Because there's some pretty sharp people out there
Yeah.
that are well versed in the law and I mean,
Yeah.
can repeat. And I'm not one of them. I might have to pull out a book and be like, hold on, according to page 392, let me read it real quick.
Here's a question though, man, for you. All right, let's say we're, in the same vehicle. He's driving, I'm not, right?
Mhm.
Okay, and we get pulled over.
Mhm.
Do I have to give that officer my ID if he asks for it?
That's a good question.
Yeah, so in Indiana, the answer is you don't have to give him your ID, but you have to identify yourself if he has reasonable suspicion to believe that you've been involved in a crime.
Okay.
And that's for if you're walking on the street or if you're in a car.
So,
Okay.
so pretty much, yes. You gotta give your ID.
Yeah, you got to do little qualifiers.
Because
but-
because the officer can use that as well. I can identify him and say that he may have been part of a crime. So I wanted to identify him. So
I can say, well, listen, my name is Pat Williams, or whatever, and he can say, well, let me see your ID.
Mhm.
But I mean, I've heard so many times where people will say, no, if you are the passenger, he's really not pulling you over; he's pulling over the driver. So you have nothing to do with that. So you don't technically have to give him your ID.
Mhm. But see, and this is the twist of it. So, an officer needs reasonable suspicion that you were involved in a crime to ask you to identify yourself. It can't just be random conversation he compels you to.
Okay.
But what if he thinks he does and you think he doesn't? Do you really want to take that gamble? Because there's a statute that says, if this, then that. If he believes you are involved in a crime, you have to identify yourself. And if you fail to do so, you violated the law.
Okay.
So, are you really trying to play with that on the street?
Right.
Nah, bet you're right.
right.
King of the
It's
street, you king of the court.
It's the way these are written,
Yeah.
and that's hopefully some of the things that needs to be looked at because if some people, not all officers, but some officers are taking advantage of that, where they feel like compelled to do that, then that's a problem too.
Oh, absolutely.
That's an advantage that they have regardless. Especially in Indiana. That is what it is. Knowing these details are good for people to understand what they have to do right now. And if you have a problem with that, then we run for be a politician and go fight the law.
Well, not only that, but and this is another part of this presentation. It's if this is the rule and the rule is being applied and it's coming up with an outcome we don't like, what can we do about it? So
Right.
part of that is figuring out, here, that officer said he had reasonable suspicion. I didn't do anything. There's no way he had reasonable suspicion. Well, what do? You can make a complaint with the Citizens Complaint Board. Get that thing documented. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to put the time in. This is just cops looking out for cops. Build your record. That's one thing we learned in law school. You build your record. So,
How do you get in contact with the Citizens Complaint Board?
if you, and everybody love Google right now, somebody give a shout out to Google. Just Google Citizens Complaint Board, and it will take you exactly.
Do you have to put Indiana in, or is this a national thing?
No, this is local, so you can put in Indianapolis.
Okay.
Yeah, man, they'll find it by putting.
I could try to give you the website, but Google it.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it
Citizens
is.
Complaint Board.
It
So
is.
if you feel like you've been done wrong by an officer,
Mhm.
then you go to the Citizens Complaint Board.
You can make a complaint there, absolutely. There's other avenues, but that's one that we're really trying to push. Is it's a clean, easy approach. There's a third party reviewing it, so absolutely.
Look, and hopefully, you know what, man, I guarantee that you can, answer this because I heard this years ago, and I'm like, man, that cannot be true. And look, to our viewers, I'm not trying to get you guys to drink and drive, but I have to ask them this. Okay, I heard that if you have been drinking and driving, right, and you get pulled over, you always keep a small bottle of some type of drink, in your glove box or, something. So if the cop says, step out of your car because he thinks that, you've been drinking, you take that bottle and drink it right in front of him. So now he can't prove if you have been, drinking and driving. I mean, is that true?
I have not run into anything like that.
That's strange.
I've heard that, man, before, and I was like, nah, that doesn't sound.
I will say this though, I would never recommend doing that.
No.
Because if nothing else, like,
That don't
and
even sound right.
I think there are ways that an officer would be able to prove up the fact that whatever you drank at that moment, you still had enough in you before your toxicology exams, where that ain't gonna work. But like, let's assume that did work. You trading offenses because you're publicly intoxicated. You're operating the vehicle and you're drinking while you're operating the vehicle.
Well,
so you're trading offenses right now.
Well, this is what the person said, that the vehicle is parked, so they're not driving, and they drunk the alcohol right in front of the cop.
Was the vehicle on?
No, I mean I don't know.
Let's assume they took the keys out, threw the keys away. You still got a public intox.
Okay,
right.
Like,
and they said, but they said they would rather have that than DUI.
I would never recommend that. I'm gonna stick with that as my answer. That's my final answer.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Matt Bowling, shout out to Matt Bowling out there for tuning in. He had a question.
What Matt Bowling say? What's up, Matt? He said, without saying you know your rights to an officer, what is one or two things you can say when approached by an officer so they know you know your rights?
Okay, so typically this plays out on the street, so a pedestrian situation. Officer comes up to you and wants to engage you in conversation. The easiest way to tell if you're being detained or not is ask the officer, "Officer, am I free to go?" And if you are free to go, keep it moving. Never run, because that is going to be evidence that they can use against you.
You free to go.
You free to go, just walk off smiling.
Man.
Now, let's say...
Take off running, man. Hey,
that's a whole nother
probable
conversation.
cause. Go get it. That's probable cause all day. Hey, listen, he's hiding something.
Another one is, I do not consider, this is usually in the context of a vehicle. You pulled over, officers asking you questions. I know you're not running drugs, but we've got a lot of reports of criminal conduct in this area. Can I search your vehicle? Officer, I understand you got a job to do, but I do not consent to warrantless searches. That should be one of the first things you say whenever they ask you to do something. They ask you to empty your pockets. Officer, I don't consent to warrantless searches. Now, a lot of people think, hey, I'm just complying with a lawful command. Now, if the officer is going to make you do it, hey, you comply with lawful commands, but before you do that, I do not consent to warrantless searches. That's for your car, that's for your house, that's for your person. Absolutely.
So if they stop you and they say, hey, and they put you on the wall and they pat you down, okay, so in order for an officer to do that, they have to have at least what?
Reasonable suspicion.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so they can't just do it.
Yeah, it can't just be, hey, what's your name? That's a nice jersey. Get against the wall. You can't do that. But if they're like, hey, you're in a high crime area, this is a known drug house, whatever the case may be, whatever it takes them to build up reasonable suspicion, once they got that, they could do a Terry stop. They could pat you down.
But isn't that like something like stop and frisk? Even if it was like, okay, let's say if I'm walking down the street in a high crime area, and they try to build that case up, but I know I'm innocent. I mean, they can stop me. I mean, isn't that? Oh wow,
yeah.
That's
strange that people even use stop and frisk. Like that was non-effective in the 90s.
No, but that example is.
Yeah. That definitely is.
Yeah.
Wow,
and they're still applying that. That's just a shame that that's even still up.
That's interesting.
But the twist on it is, it can't just be because you are there. It can't. You have to have some articulable suspicion of a criminal act.
Right.
So
he was wearing a hoodie.
Whatever grace that gives you.
Right. Let's talk about use of force.
Yes.
This seems to be a big one. Once you've gotten to the point where you're getting arrested, there should be once they really arrest you, I mean that should be it. Like, your hands behind your back. So they stomp on your head, hit you with a baton, kick you. I mean, maybe as an officer this, but what are they trying to do? Like, if you're detained and you're arrested, it should be done, right? I mean, you got 3 people pull up and they're like, "Yeah, we got him." They just jump in.
No, yeah. I mean, I was told that once you put those cuffs on, it's done.
Right.
Not necessarily. So I mean, so one thing about the law is it's very fact driven.
Okay.
And any circumstance or any set of facts in a circumstance could change the outcome.
Okay.
So let's say they got you in handcuffs and you ain't moving at all. And they was like, "Man, you made me run. You got something on my shirt. You know how much this costs to get dry clean?" And they just start beating you.
Right.
That's going to get you a different result than if you tussling with them, still arguing, still moving around.
Right.
that might make it a justifiable use of force. So
Right, but I've also seen like where like a guy is like they're telling you to like you officers know how to put your arms in a way where you can't stay still because it's like making you move. I mean, ain't that intensive use of force? Like when they've already detained you and they're telling you to stop moving, but because of the way that they're moving you, you move, and it's just like you'll never stop being able to move. I was watching this. This was something that was in a convenience store. It looks like, and you know, the guy, he seemed to get more aggressive as they were getting more aggressive, and it was like a never-ending thing because once you get to the point where they're trying to detain you, even with you just laying there, and they're still saying stop moving and doing this, and then you still move because they like the knee in your side. I mean, what do you do?
in that moment, there's not much you can do other than hope that somebody is observing what's going on, and then take it, citizens complaint boards, filing a lawsuit, bringing out attention so you can change the police protocol. But in that moment, there's not a lot you can do, unfortunately.
So, in the Citizens Complaint Board, would you recommend somebody going there as opposed to like suing an officer, or what would you say? Go there first.
Always get Citizens Complaint Board or making a report with the law enforcement agency itself. Absolutely. I mean, even if you're gonna sue them, whether you sue them or you don't sue them, always do that. And then just talk to some attorneys and figure out if you got a case. There's this thing in the law called statute of limitations. So after a period of time, even if you did have a claim, it's now expired. It's still. So, I mean, if you think you got something, check in with somebody. Most attorneys will give you a free consultation and figure out if you got something or not. But
this is a question. I'm telling myself it's a good question.
I'm sure.
It just popped up in my head. So there was a case where someone that I know got into some trouble with the law, and it wasn't because of their. It was kind of situation where you was and you was in the shower and then somebody else was doing it, and they got caught up in that, and they got to a point where they went through all these different cases, and 2-3 years later, all the charges dropped and they couldn't prove nothing. They paid out all this money. When they decide to drop a case, or I would say the state, when they decide to dismiss it, do they make you sign something where you can't sue the state?
Circumstances might.
Because I've been hearing different things. Like when they know they're at fault, and they say that this case is dismissed or whatever, and you have to sign something. Is that signing to say that you can't sue them because of that?
Right. Circumstances may be different. I have heard of instances where they will have you plead guilty, and then in the plea agreement it will be something like after some nominal conduct or fine, then we'll drop the charges. Those things have happened before. Right. But as
kind of an exchange of service. We'll stop messing with you if you just go ahead and sign.
It's counted as a loss.
Right, counted as a loss. That's pretty much what it is.
I've heard that happening before, but that I don't think is the standard practice. I could be wrong. It's just not something I've heard of often. Okay.
Let's talk about initiating and terminating police interactions. Black folks, man, we just emotional. You know what I'm saying? And we got a lot of pride.
Black folks.
We are. We care about everything, and we don't like being disrespected. Respect is huge in our community.
Absolutely.
Even amongst each other, you disrespect somebody, you might not make it
home. Fight for no reason. Yeah.
So because of that, it gets to a point where your interaction with officers or whoever of authority tends to get out of hand. When should somebody terminate? When they start, I know. Look, I'm not. As soon as you start grabbing I'm like, okay, you know what? You trying to do something we ain't even. But some people don't care. They just feel like they got the right to be doing what they're doing. When should someone terminate? Because I've seen both sides. Like a guy, this is crazy. All this is on Facebook. A guy was talking with an officer, and he was just pretty much the officer was just sitting there taking this brand bashing of what he should have done and all this, and this guy just sitting there. And it was, to me, I was like, it was a little bit long-winded. I'm like, at some point, he could have decided that he wanted to arrest you because now you already made your point. You know what I'm saying? And the officer probably felt bad, but he just kept going. But nothing ever happened, so whatever. Then I've seen it where an officer, he asked for ID, and you like, I ain't give you my ID, and then they busting windows. So it's almost like you don't know which officer you're gonna get.
But I mean, why would an officer do that though? I mean, like they know that they're being recorded, and the guys are listen. I'm not raising, I'm not going to lower my window, and then they just bust through the window.
So two pieces. The first part is how do you terminate those encounters?
Right.
It's those magic words. Officer, am I free to go? And that's in any setting. Obviously not for your house. It's a little different because where you going to go? You already home. For those, you want to be a little careful.
It would be, officer, are you free to go?
Right. And one of the things we're going to do at this event is we're going to, for the panel discussion, we're going to have videos, and it's going to be a simulation of instances, and then we're going to have panelists give discussion about the video they see.
Yep.
One that I liked is there's a lady in her home. Officers come up and say, "Hey, just like to talk with you. We're doing this citizen service where we just check out things for you." And she's like, "I'm sorry. Do you have a warrant to come in my house?" He's like, "Man, this ain't that. It's just we trying to help you out here." She's like, "Oh, that's cool, but you got a warrant to come in my house." It's like, "Nah. Okay, well, go ahead. You have a good day."
Right.
And again, it's just one of those. If I'm free to go, I'm leaving. And if I'm not free to go, then you're free to go.
Right.
Wow,
Please see yourself off to the next one. Now, for your question, it's when would an officer, or should an officer be able to break your window? I need a lot more facts to figure that part out, but the question is always going to be, are you complying with the lawful command? And then, are you in a position to really make that assessment? And if you ain't, don't give up your rights, but beyond preserving your rights, just comply. Your fight is the next day. Your fight is in court, not on the street.
Can you curse out? Can you curse out the cops? Listen,
man, please be careful.
I'm sure.
Please be careful what you tell people.
I'm sure a lot of viewers are like, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I'm saying, but I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, I've done that when I was in high school, but that was another story. But I mean, but is that legal though?
So with the law, one thing you always hear is it depends. And it depends. So here you go. You have the freedom of speech, and therefore you have the right to say something, even if it's derogatory or what have you, to a law enforcement officer. But then the twist is disorderly conduct. And what is the law for that? And can they use the disorderly conduct law to get you for your your string of profanities thrown their way? And the answer is probably, possibly. So you want to play with it, but you're doing a lot of stuff that you might not really need to do in that situation.
Right.
And then the other piece I'd say, and this is more personal than it is illegal, cops are people too, right? And like us, we want to keep our dignity. They want to keep their dignity. They got to assert control in that situation.
Right.
And that really ain't leaving them feeling like they're in a lot of control. So they might do something to reassert that control.
Right. That's a good
You make
point.
choices every day.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very, very good.
It just
good point.
depends on who you get.
And just don't threaten them.
As officers, there's some officers that understand. Like they're not going. This is another thing. Like, and shout out to Officer Cox. Officer Cox came on, and we always talk about how to de-escalate depending on the race. Like when they pull up, he said he had to de-escalate a few situations where some white officers really didn't know how to handle. Like, we are emotional people. Again, we might be screaming and yelling, but that don't mean we're gonna hurt anybody. You know what I'm saying? We might just be mad because one of our family members got shot or hurt or killed. You know what I'm saying? So that is that may be something different. And he was telling us how he has to de-escalate some of those situations because some officers will take that as a threat. Like, you screaming, I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna have to detain you, put you in the car to shut you up because you was out of control. Not understanding that this person just lost somebody. You know what I'm saying? Or this family member just got killed. what should people do in those instances? Because it's almost like you telling them they can't weep or they can't
show their
sympathize with what
emotion.
just happened. And I know for a fact that we're just not a people that will do that. You know what I'm saying? At any circumstance. So I think that I mean that's history. You know what I'm saying? I just think that they need to figure out how to have more Officer Coxes. You know what I'm saying? Where they come in, de-escalate situations. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a hard one because I mean, again, if you get to the technical legal aspect of it, you want to find different ways to vent those frustrations and not do it in that moment, because in that moment things go sideways, and then you got a whole nother story in the news about another person who suffered a loss because things just didn't go right.
Right.
And if in a number of instances, it could have easily at any given point taken a different course. Could have made it to vent.
Right.
But if nothing else, if you see things progressively deteriorating, then maybe you figure out how to pump the brakes. Like, okay, I've said my piece, but this is getting bad now.
Right.
But that's not really a legal question. I don't know how to say that other, because I mean in that moment I could say anything in the world and it don't mean nothing, because in that moment you feeling what you feel.
Right, and that's that's what I said. It's hard to try and tell someone not to be emotional when they just lost somebody, or something has happened in the situation. It's just tough. One instance that I remember was the young kid. I think he was like 9 years old. He was walking down the street. He threw something on the ground, and there just happened to be a guy standing right there that was a Caucasian guy that was like fixing something or cleaning something, and he grabbed that kid and he I don't know if he grabbed him and pushed him, or he did something like grab his neck or something, and the kid ran home and told his mom. His mom came back, so she called the police, and she came back there and she was just screaming, really irate about it, the situation, like, you know what I'm saying, don't put your hands on my kids. The officer pulls up and he doesn't even acknowledge the guy who was supposedly the suspect. He goes at the mother because she's really screaming, like, calm down, all that. In this moment, somebody put their hands on your kid, and you really gonna sit there and like arrest this dude? You know what I'm saying? Like he put his hands on the kid over throwing some paper on the ground. When he could have handled that differently, I think. But in this case, she ended up getting arrested, and her daughter ended up getting arrested. So now it's like they got arrested for being emotional about the situation. So that's just an example of what I was saying. It's like it's crazy to try and figure out how to become non-emotional to something like that, and there's many instances of it where you see something and that's not right, and we end up getting arrested and took it to jail for it, so it's just a culture thing, something for if there's some officers out there listening, just take that into consideration, that we are an emotional people, you know what I'm saying, we handle things a little bit differently in regards to our emotions, but that doesn't mean that we're a threat.
Right.
Period.
And I'll say this. From a prospective cop's position, they might look at it as one of the first things they do when they get out there is they assert their control over the situation.
Right.
And
they have to.
Exactly.
Most cases, man, they have to.
Yeah. And if they can't, then they can't shift from, okay, now I've gotten you calmed down, let me deal with the actual criminal offense here. I still got to deal with you. So, again, I mean, I could say anything in the world, but in that moment, it ain't gonna matter, because if somebody put their hands on my kid, I might be in jail too,
Right.
So.
Right, true.
So
I'm with you, yeah.
I get it.
Right. So, okay. So, let's talk about civil asset forfeiture, and just go into detail, because I don't know what that is. I know what assets is.
What does that mean?
Forfeiture, but what is that? What is civil asset forfeiture?
All right, so the typical case is this. You have somebody who is dealing drugs, and they're transporting those drugs in a car. Now let's make it a little more where it appears unjust. That car happens to be your mom's car. Your mom ain't know nothing about what you was doing.
Right.
Cop pulls you over, sees drugs. This is involved in criminal conduct, so therefore we're going to take this car. Now we ain't going to put it through the criminal process like we're going to put you through the criminal process. We're just going to take it.
Wow.
Now this is our car. Now you want it back, you can do a couple things to try to get it back, but until you do those things, this is our car.
Wow.
My mom was like, "Hey, boy, we gonna have some words when I get done. When I get done
More
with
than
all
words.
this."
More than words. I can't do my mom like that, boy. Man,
That's the
I
bread
can't do
and
my
butter.
mom like that, man.
But even before she gets a chance to put hands on you, she got to try to get her car back.
Right.
And the question is that really the best way of going about it?
Mm.
So that's one of the things we want to talk about, and that's
Wow.
both at the state and the federal level, and then with the U.S. Justice Department, they actually have some stuff now where they actually work with state governments to facilitate that, and just it's a national discussion. And
Right.
we want to kind of touch on it from a state perspective.
When you
Okay.
say the best way to go about it, in what terms? Like to receive your property?
Yeah, so the state legislator is actually looking at this issue right now, and we're trying to figure out, okay, is the law the way it's set up really appropriate,
Right.
both as a constitutional matter and then just as a general policy matter. So getting people, one, informed about the topic, and then two, active in lobbying, like, hey, this is a problem. We don't
Right.
want the law to be the way it is currently. Let's kind of clean that up a little bit.
Right. I had a conversation with a teenager. It's kind of off subject, but I had a conversation with a teenager who asked that. Well, he ended up getting arrested because he was with somebody else who had done something. He was guilty by association. And this is for those kids. Maybe we can together help them understand why guilty by association will always be the case when you with someone who is either selling drugs or whatever. Because a lot of kids, they feel like they're not doing it. So I hang with him because that's my boy. But I ain't doing it, so ain't nothing gonna happen to me. Tell him why that's a bad idea.
And I am not a criminal law attorney, so I'm not going to be able to point to each and every statute out there, but the question is always going to be, is there some law you're violating? Is there some way that they can tie you to the conduct? Is this a conspiracy? Are you a lookout for this person? Are you part of the transaction where you might be holding the money or the drugs or whatever else? In that moment, the officer isn't going to have everything worked out and built up. They're going to have a reasonable suspicion. They're going to have probable cause. And that's enough to take you in. And the question is always going to be, is it worth it? So, you my guy, we can hang out, but go ahead and do your 8 to 5 or your 9 to 5 or whatever.
Right.
And when you're done with that, put it up and let's hang.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I'm not taking a ride for you because we want to hang out on the corner.
Right.
So, I mean, that's again a personal opinion, but if the law permits an officer to take you all in, even if the charges don't stick, think about it. You might have information that's helpful to them, and you might be concerned, and they might be able to get you to flip. So, isn't it an incentive for them to take everybody in and figure out if they can get somebody to talk? Why wouldn't they? So, it's not a good position to put yourself in.
I'm with you. I mean, I've been in situations, I would say
I'm
few
telling you right now. I'm
situations,
telling. Don't tell me. I got kids. I love my life.
I've been in a few
If you
situations.
doing anything illegal, do not tell Ray. I'm telling you right now.
Oh man, listen, I've been
I'm
in
telling.
I've been in a few situations where people would get in in my car. Hey Pat, can you run me home? Okay. And then they have a book bag, man, full of weed or something. Like, dude, hold on, man. Like, look, you gotta hold on, man. What are you doing? Oh man, just run me over here. No, dog, no. Nah.
Yeah, dude, I remember working for a truck wash on the south side when I was like in my early 20s. And I didn't understand the language of ride with me to St. Louis, I didn't understand that kind of language. I just thought, you gotta be careful when people ask you to ride to places that they've never been before because they just need somebody to ride with them. There's a reason they ask you to ride with them.
Hey, ride to Terre Haute with me, Bloomington with me. Like, nah,
Man.
I never knew if my professor was joking or not, but one of my law professors said, anybody, family otherwise, ask me for a ride, we're going to stand outside, I'm going to pat you down like I'm an officer before you get in my car.
For sure.
Yeah, why not? Why not, man? Because listen, you get pulled over, man, and then they search the car and they find something and you have no clue. Man, look,
Guilty by association.
Yeah, guilty by association.
More than that, if it's
I mean,
in your car, like not on their person, but in your car, because they was like, oh, let me go ahead and slide this off real quick. They might not catch it. They might not see it.
You just riding and the police.
You gonna take that ride for them.
Right. You just ride with somebody and the police find 50 kilos.
50 kilos? Man.
That was a big
going?
suitcase.
Where y'all going? You know what I'm saying?
Airport. Airport.
And don't act like you didn't know it was in the back. You know what I'm saying? That's what they're going to hit you with. But, I mean, that's just strange, man, because, I mean, that's just the kind of time we live in where drug trafficking and all this stuff is still happening. You know, they're just finding new ways to do it. Unfortunately, there's always going to be something that's there. But so we just have to continue protecting ourselves. Like I said, let me tell y'all right now, this is my disclaimer. Don't tell me what y'all doing that's illegal. If somebody asks me, I'm telling on you. I'm sorry. I couldn't be an attorney either. I'd be that attorney, be like, look, bruh, I mean, you didn't tell me all the facts. You know, you didn't added everything up for me. I'm gonna have to withdraw. I ain't got time for this.
No, I mean, you would have to, you know, take the case or not.
Well, no, you can withdraw.
I mean, you want but you want a good win to loss ratio, though.
Oh, Devil's Advocate. That's the Devil's Advocate. You see that movie, The Devil's Advocate?
Yeah.
The dude was just like, shoot, forget it. I'm
do not hire Ray. Do not hire Ray. He won 2 cases and lost 90.
My moral compass is too good, man. I can't do it. I'm like, nah.
He's a Glass Joe of attorneys.
Have you? I mean, do you see that happening? Have you done that? Like where it's, you know.
I won't speak personally, obviously.
Sure,
but what I will say is, as a hypothetical matter, what you want to do as an attorney is you want to figure out the best arguments you can make for your case within the confines of the law and the professional rules of conduct. So, somebody may or may not have made mistakes.
Right.
But if you can find a way to see them clear of some or all of those mistakes, then, you know, you provide that service for your client.
Right. Okay.
I think that's about as diplomatic as I can get.
Hey, that's the best answer. Hey, I'm with you. I feel you. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Hey, brothers got hey, it's all good. At the end of the day.
What is your definition of snitching?
That's what I was just very asking. What is snitching? Because I mean, we have to define this.
I wanna hear your definition.
Okay.
So one, I don't even use the word snitching because I believe that's a part of why there are high crime areas. You have to be willing to report things to law enforcement, and for me, if it's something that's going to be detrimental to myself or my community, I don't mind reporting things to law enforcement. If it is something that you are doing that the law just currently prescribes, but it really isn't hurting anybody, in my opinion, then unless, as an attorney, this is, I guess, me speaking hypothetically for others, I don't feel that obligation to report. Because what do I care if you smoking a little something on your porch? Like, who's that really bothering? But if you out here shooting people, you out here robbing people, okay, that's a problem. I need to get cleaned up in the neighborhood. And this might be another series that we have down the road where, okay, well, we've talked about interactions with law enforcement. Now let's talk about ways we can improve the community.
Absolutely.
And that has to be a cultural shift.
I'm with you.
It can't be snitching. Like, if
I'm
I'm seeing people getting killed, like if my cousin get killed, I'm definitely looking for people. So why would I not want other people to help me?
I'm with you.
So
and that's another argument because some people feel like they won't be protected, like in certain communities. And we had this discussion on one show with an officer where I was telling her like, people are not comfortable with coming clean with stuff because they live in a neighborhood next door to somebody. If they see an officer coming to your house and only your house, and then all of a sudden you get locked up, they coming after you.
yeah.
So I think the officers have to make it not so apparent. You know what I'm saying? They got to find ways to get information from people without knocking on the door. You know anything that's going on? Like ain't nobody about to tell you nothing right now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you meet me on 35th and Capitol, you know what I'm saying? We might be able to talk, but we ain't doing nothing on Dearborn.
Not at all. Not at all.
But for the viewers, here's the definition of snitching. If me and Ray robbed a bank, knock on wood.
We robbed the bank. That's the key. We.
If we robbed a bank and then we get caught. They put Ray in the room and put me, and put me in a room, and Ray rats me out. He's snitching.
No, wait. We make the agreement
Hold
not to snitch.
Hold on, but nah. If we did something wrong together,
I think it's implied.
yeah, exactly. And they put us in separate rooms, and you told on me like, hey man, it was all him and blah 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 blah. But I didn't rat on you. That is snitching. But if Aaron witnessed us do it, and he told the cops, that's not snitching at all.
Because he didn't know we was doing it.
No, like he
Because
saw
I wasn't
us.
involved in it.
Yeah, he wasn't involved in it. He, number one, look, he's a taxpayer, so he has every right to try to keep his environment, his community safe. So if he sees people that are doing, crime, he has every right to report it. That is not snitching at all, and people get the two, mixed up, which is why people don't want to talk to the cops and say, hey man, I saw this happen. No, that is not snitching. Snitching is if people are involved in doing something wrong together,
right,
and they get
right.
caught and they tell on each other. That is snitching.
Right. And I agree. And if you didn't know anything about the situation, but you get asked the question, this is why I say, if I see you doing something, that's not the problem. If the officer come knock on my door and say, "Did you see?" Yeah, I'm telling him.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I mean, I seen it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna put myself in a position
safe.
because here's what happens if you lie. You know what I'm saying? You know that. If you say you know something and then you lie about it, and then they find out that you knew and you had something to do with it, that's a charge. I mean, you can go to jail for that. What is that called?
There's some nuances there. It's
Yeah.
false reporting.
Okay.
There's some nuances in that. I definitely would not encourage people to lie, but that doesn't mean you're compelled to provide testimony for others unless there are some issues.
Plead the
going on.
fifth.
Well, the fifth won't work unless you were involved in the conduct.
Okay.
But and I'm trying to keep it short. But the gist of it is, you'll know when you're compelled to provide testimony because you'll be drawn before a court and you'll be
Okay.
ordered to testify. Short of that, like, hey, I don't want to get myself involved in this situation.
Right. They gotta understand that.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, again, you look at it this way. This is the community I live in, and either I want to participate in keeping it clean or getting it clean, or I'm going to let it be what it is because other people out here doing dirt. And
Right.
everybody got to make choices.
But if they find out without a shadow of a doubt that you was a part of something and you said you wasn't,
Oh, well, yeah, you got
that's what I'm saying.
you got
Like,
a whole line of issues.
lying don't mean nothing when they got you on video. You know what I'm saying? With 3 to 4 witnesses. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Aaron might not have seen us rob the bank, but look, Aaron was with us,
Yeah.
even though he wasn't. See, I can't be no criminal. Cause I be like, look, Aaron told on us. He was with us.
he planned all
He came with us. He was the lookout man. Nah, but it's just crazy, man. Like, I don't think anybody, jail is not a fun place to be, but some people go so often that it's like home.
Second home.
Another thing is we have to get ourselves together in regards to like felonies and stuff. At what point, and you may know something about this or not, but at what point can someone expunge a felony?
That's a great question, man.
That is, and unfortunately, that's outside of my bailiwick. Sorry,
I heard it was 7 years, but
Or does it depend on the felony?
Right, and again, it's just something.
Okay.
When I say bailiwick, it's just outside of what I normally do. So for this program, we've had the opportunity to work with some intelligent, brilliant people.
okay,
Both listed here, and then some additional people. So though these aren't areas that I practice,
right,
I've done a lot of research. Whenever I
Okay.
do something, I go in hard. I
Right,
go
right,
in
right.
a
For
great
sure.
bit of detail. So as it relates to these topics, got you all day.
okay.
But that's just
For
something-
sure. Nothing wrong with
right
that.
now.
That's why y'all need to come to the event.
Absolutely.
October the 5th, Police Interaction Accountability Community Forum Program. How many of these will y'all have? Because it seems like these events happen and then they don't happen no more. So this may be something that should happen, at least once or twice a year,
Right.
maybe three times a year.
So we actually have been approached about a couple things. One is having this event in different areas. So after this, my firm is Cohen and Millad, and they have been incredibly generous in allowing me to put some time and effort into this program.
Shout out to
like,
them.
hey, we gonna have to get those billables,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
Shout out to them.
so I'm gonna take a quick break on that, but we're looking at doing another event just like this in Lake County,
Okay.
and
Gary.
then still playing with that, but yeah, in the area.
Yeah.
And then we're looking at having a follow up. So this is, you can kind of think of your initial encounter and how to deal with that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what if things go wrong and you end up in the criminal system? So we want to do something about that, and that'll be
Absolutely,
another follow-up.
that's gonna be huge.
Yeah.
I mean, because it really is like I think people are starting to wake up. I really do, which is why the boy in office, which is why it was important. I think it's important that he got in office because it really did wake a lot of people up, and a lot of people are realizing like they need to get the things together, and because at the end of the day, you all you got, you and your family.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And waiting on this person to fix something for everybody, which never happens. And I don't know any. This is why I don't understand the argument, and I'm taking this to a different arena in regards to politics. I don't understand why people think the president is
the savior.
like at the end of like a lot of people question like, wow, what Obama do for us? You know what I'm saying? It's like at the end of the day, you still had to get your credit together.
Yeah.
You still had to get your education. You know what I'm saying? You still had to make improvement in your personal life, your progress. You know what I'm saying? And that's not the saying that he couldn't have done some things. He could. I think, in my opinion, he could have done some things, but I'm not holding him accountable for not changing my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, I still got responsibilities. Still got to take care of my kids. Still got to progress and take care of myself and everything that's surrounding my family. You know what I'm saying? Start there first. You just can't attack a president and think that because of him I can't live. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I definitely don't do that. But I do think that it was necessary for Trump to be in office so that people could think differently. For a guy like that to be in office, we was talking about this beforehand. He was shooting jump shots with the paper towels,
man.
Shooting jump shots with the paper towels in Puerto Rico, and probably felt good about it. You know what I'm saying? To have a guy like that, he forgot about his wife. You know what I'm saying? There was I don't know if y'all seen that, but
it's a
She
video,
was standing
man.
right next
Yeah,
to him.
but
That's right next to her.
She wished she could be here with
I
us.
wish Melania could. Man,
She was
you
standing
know
right
how
next to
funny that was to me?
No, but what was, but to add on that, when the solar eclipse hit, and he was with no glasses on, man, just looking at it.
Hey, but you gotta, if nothing else, and I'm saying this sarcastically, I do not support or respect the gentleman.
For sure.
But you gotta respect a man who sticks with his convictions. He doesn't
yeah.
believe in global warming. He doesn't believe in science. So why would he believe that?
You gotta give him that. You gotta give him that. That's why I said he's hilarious.
Man, that guy is arrogant.
Top
man.
10. He's probably he's top 10 comedian 2017.
I've never been a fan
because-
of Trump though.
Because he
Not at
doesn't
all.
care. And maybe that's what people like about it, but it's such a detriment to certain aspects of being an American that I don't think people realize how bad that is. Like the stuff that he's doing is just like that doesn't represent America. You know what I'm saying? And it's almost like that cousin that you got that you like him because he loud, but you don't like him because you can't take him everywhere. He's he's that guy, you know what I'm saying?
And the lawyer in me is screaming out disclaimer. So disclaimer as it relates to the police interaction
For
and
sure,
accountability
for sure.
community forum. There is no political
For
bent
sure,
or
for sure.
perspective involved
Yeah.
in that.
Yeah.
It's
Disclaimer,
very much
disclaimer.
focused on having a conversation both from the
Absolutely.
police officer
Yes.
perspective and the citizen's perspective,
Bridge the
and just
gap.
how to improve that interaction. So
Absolutely.
don't take this commentary on my part as anything other than my personal comments.
Yeah, for sure. And we want to do that, we're just
It's the gray area,
Oh,
baby.
yeah,
we like to
Yeah,
be
we're gonna
comedians
touch
in
it,
here.
I don't mind. It's just that lawyer in me.
And you got to make
Oh, yeah.
light of the things that are happening. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? This stuff is real.
Well,
You know
maybe
what I'm
that's
saying?
what he was doing. Maybe that's why he was shooting jump shots, man. with the
Shooting
knife.
jump shots with the
Trying to make
paper
light of
towels.
what was going on. I don't know, man. But listen, man, straight up
Man.
though, there are some people out there that are diehard Trump supporters that think that, well, yeah, he was making light of it. He just wanted to make the people laugh. You see all the people that were laughing? That's why he was doing that. Man, they find every excuse for this man.
He's an entertainer, man. At the end of the day, and that's his thing. You know what I'm saying? He made it to a higher office, and he got there, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, that's even more reason why we need to get it together.
Absolutely.
Take everything serious. Education,
Yes.
you know, personal life, credit, finance, housing, you know what I'm saying? Everything. We've been we're so behind on certain aspects, and it's almost like once you reach a certain level, and I almost understand. I was sitting thinking one day, like, why, like, some people who get money, get to a certain point where they have money, they just leave everybody else behind. I can kind of see why. You know what I'm saying? Because you get to if you reach a level in education or in finance or wherever you get to, and you've basically built yourself up to a certain place, and it's not necessarily like you forget people, but you can't help everybody. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, some people just have to help themselves. And we're the people that blames others for things that they have no right to blame for. We can only blame ourselves. So
I mean, you get to a point, you know, the more success that you have, where you are at a level where you're either going to bring people up with you, or you're going to surround yourself with people that are going to make you even better.
Right.
You know, I think there's a fine line, man, between keeping it real and, you know, trying to still aspire to get to a certain level, but still know the core of who you are and staying true to that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. An example would be like, you know, what we're doing with Gray Area, what you're doing with this event. You don't have to do this. I mean, you're not getting paid to do it. This is like voluntary because you're saying that this is necessary to happen. I feel like we're all obligated to do something like that. You know what I'm saying? To make an impact somewhere that we deem necessary, because at the end of the day, who's going to do it? You know what I'm saying? Who's going to do it? And that's why that's why we created this forum, so we can have people like you come on and explain this stuff, and you know, we try to have fun, and man, the stuff that we've been going over today is so important. I mean, like, I know you had to do the solo thing. It's all good, you know.
Oh, man, he knocked it out.
Man,
he knocked it out, though.
We're gonna have we're gonna have you guys come back on again.
Yeah,
absolutely, man.
You know, with everybody, because again, this discussion can't stop. We have to keep
going,
hammering at this and talking about this until it gets like hammered in people's head. Because it's simply just a lot of people out there that are ignorant to what's going on.
Right.
Only thing they get, like their news and their media, is just Facebook. You know, they don't know anything else.
And one thing I want to add is, so part of the title is accountability, and not only do we want to hold the institutions involved accountable, we want to hold ourselves accountable.
Absolutely, I'm sure.
And that's both for the people who are putting the event on, as well as just the citizens who are impacted by this conduct on a daily basis. So what we're hoping to do is after what we're hoping to do is after this event is over, this is going to be baseline information. This is how the process is supposed to work. If it isn't working, this is who you talk to. Okay, now we've had a month, 6 months, a year to figure out what's come of that, and if we don't like the process, we need to change it. Well, us coming up to the system and saying, hey, we don't like this process, we need to change it, is far less meaningful, impactful than if we had 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people behind us saying the same thing. And that's where we really want to get. We want to get to the point of, okay, you know, consider it a study.
Right.
You said this is the law, you said this is how you apply the law, these are outcomes, and I don't think anybody will agree that these outcomes are positive, at least not on some scale. Like there are problems in the system. We need to fix these problems. So come on and let's talk about how we change that system. Let's talk about how we change the ordinances. Let's talk about how we change IMPD protocol. Let's talk about how we change state law. And then that's where it gets less sexy, because it's real easy to come in and have a conversation. It's a lot harder to do the daily grind necessary to change those things. So get informed, and then participate and stay active and actually changing it once you get to that point of understanding.
Man, this is so necessary. Like, when you talk about being productive and getting in a forum where people are listening respectfully, that's what we need. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and not that we're not effective, because, you know, what we do here is similar, but you're getting chiefs together and the Indian chiefs and the Indians together, like, look, we're gonna figure this out together, and move forward. And in America, you almost have to do it that way. You know what I'm saying? That's not knocking anything, but the go, I'm gonna knock your door down, you gonna hear me, doesn't work in America. It's almost like, okay, now we taking you to jail. you gotta say, you know what? Let me have a seat at the table and let's discuss this. And we have to keep doing that until we figure something out.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we can still disrupt some things. You know what I'm saying? But not in a way where it becomes disrespectful, where we're violating other people's rights and stuff. So.
Yeah, and I'll never knock civil disobedience because it has had success throughout
For
history.
sure.
And when you make people uncomfortable in these situations, that's when people start listening.
Absolutely.
I mean, we might not have the dialogue we're having right now, but for that action, but for those actions.
For sure.
That said, you have to figure out, okay, well, just like people have different ways of learning, people have different ways of receiving information and making change. And this is just one method among many. So if you feel better, you feel more comfortable doing a protest or civil disobedience or disruption, I mean, do you. That doesn't mean you can't come over and help us out. And if you can, please do.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely.
But this is the tack we take, and we hope that we get some success out of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a beautiful thing, man.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, I think that it is much needed, and I think a lot of positive feedback and progress will come from this.
Absolutely. So you got the speakers for this event. This is the Police Interaction Accountability Community Forum. You have Chief Roach, IMPD Chief of Police.
And a quick switch out. So he unfortunately won't be able to attend. So in his place will be Assistant Chief Taylor.
Okay. Assistant Chief Taylor is standing in for Chief Roach. Okay. Professor Fran Watson, IU McKinney School of Law. Terry Curry, Marion County Prosecutor. I've heard his name a few times. Dr. David Hampton, Light of the World Christian Church and Deputy Mayor of Neighborhood Engagement for the City of Indianapolis. You got some heavy hitters coming in here. Jan Menz, excuse me if I'm saying that wrong, American Civil Liberties Union of Indiana. Lori D. White, Executive Director, Citizens Complaint Board. Citizens Complaint Board.
Yep.
So that's the person you want to make sure you have a conversation with.
Absolutely.
Okay. And Corey Scott, Law Office of Corey L. Scott.
He's a criminal defense attorney.
Criminal defense attorney. Shannon Williams, President of Indianapolis Recorder Newspaper.
Yep. So Shannon will actually be the moderator for the panel.
Okay.
For the panel discussion, and then Jan Menz will be the gentleman providing introductory comments. So. If you think of the event in three parts, the first part is introductory comments. Let's figure out what the law is.
Okay.
And then we're going to have the panel discussion. Let's look at some videos. There are simulations of encounters. And let's talk about it from the various perspectives. And then at the end, it's going to be a question and answer session. So after you've taken all that in, we're going to pass out index cards at the beginning. Just ask that people write those questions down. We'll collect them towards the end. Select a few people.
Yeah.
And then get the questions. Now the audience can actually put questions to the panelists and figure out, okay, well, I heard what you said, but maybe it didn't work that way for me. Or I heard what you said, but now if it doesn't play out that way, what can I do? And have a dialogue with these people right there, real time.
Right.
So.
And this registration is required.
Absolutely.
The seating is limited. How much seating is there?
So right now the capacity is 200, but we're going to make some space for press to be there. We're hopeful that press is able to attend. So probably about 180 seats.
Okay, 180 seats.
We may come.
Okay.
Please do.
Yeah.
I've been
what
telling
do we have to do for as press? Like, what do we have to do?
So you don't have to do anything. What we hope you do is that you come, you make notes of the event, and then you report on it. So again, this is only the beginning of the discussion. This is here's a law, here's a process, etc.
Right.
And then this is what's going to come next.
Okay.
So talk about what you saw and talk about, hey, this is how you get involved in that next piece.
Okay.
10-5 from 6 to 8. Hold on, let's look at the calendar before we shoot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
And while you're looking at the calendar, what I've been saying
That's
is if you can make it, great.
Yeah, that's Thursday.
And whether you can or can't make it, tell 5 people. Now, y'all already done that.
For
Y'all
sure.
told y'all audience.
Yeah,
So I
we
appreciate
told
you.
our audience. Yeah, we probably won't be able to make because we have a show from 8. Well, you know, we can come for
like an hour. Yeah, an hour or so.
Yeah, we might just come for an hour.
And we may do that, man.
Okay.
That would be
And this is being put on by the Indiana State Bar Association.
Correct.
Wow.
And then the Urban League was kind enough to offer the facility for us. So just been a lot of great people, both who are on this paper, the steering committee who helped put this together. And I guess this is a quick opportunity to give a shout out to some of them. Forgive me if I miss anybody. It would be Chief Brian Reeder, Katrina Simmons.
I was gonna say, shout out to Katrina Simmons. She hit me up about this.
She actually was the reason we're here today, so thank you for that.
Yep.
We have Linda Thompson. We have Executive Director Lori D. White. We have Fran Watson. We have Corey Scott. We have Lucy Frick. Angela Fox. And then Norris Cunningham. He is the chair of the Diversity Committee. And again, forgive me if I missed anybody. But yeah, I mean, they came together because, again, I do it early and often. We had bi-weekly meetings since probably June.
Yeah.
And they just been putting in work on this event. So thank you for all of your hard work.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is going to be a phenomenal event.
Absolutely.
And people need to be there. If you want to make some changes, or, I mean, so how is voicing your opinion going to work in that forum? Like, is it somebody passing the mic around, or what? How's that going to work?
Yep, so the question and answer section, we're going to have index cards, you write your questions down.
Okay.
There'll be about 4 of us collecting those cards, reviewing them, making sure it's legible. And then with time permits, we're going to ask people to go up either to the podium, well, actually, no. We're going to have the moderator read their questions.
Okay.
That way it'll just make it
faster.
Yeah,
I was going to say,
try to get as many questions.
community engagement and interaction is important, because if a lot of people go there and all they're doing is listening,
right?
you know what I'm saying? I mean, somebody got to pass that mic around.
Absolutely.
And I just say that because it makes it more interactive. You know, I can put something down on the card, and I can go over, but still not answer my question. You know what I'm saying? So how are you guys engaging in that aspect? So once somebody writes something down and they give it to y'all and y'all discuss it, do they get a chance to ask questions after that, or how does that work?
Right. So just for the sake of time and the respect of the audience, we're probably going to try to have the questions put to the audience as it's written, or put to the panelists as it's written, and then have them respond to those questions.
Okay.
For the panelists who are able to stick around, and I've not been able to confirm their schedules to see beyond the 6 to 8 time period. Hopefully we can have some panelists stick around, but if not, there are going to be channels to have further discussions. This is only the start
from the beginning. Okay.
Exactly.
Man, I applaud you for leading the charge on this and having a team of people that believe in this. Again, Katrina has been chatting with me about this for a long time. I want to get you guys in here. So I'm glad that we were able to do that a couple of days before the event goes down. Which is good. You know, God's timing is perfect. You know what I'm saying? Who's to say that if we'd had y'all 2 weeks ago, people would remember that this day is here. So
it's Thursday.
This Thursday. From 6 to 8 at the Indiana Urban League. Get there to hear the Police Interaction Accountability Community Forum.
The address.
And one thing, if I could, so registration, what you'll want to do is just go to www.inbar.org, or you can call in at 1-800-266-2581. We're not going to turn people away to the extent that we have seats, but it just really helps with head count because we ain't trying to have to turn people away. So please take a few moments and register.
Absolutely.
The
Come
address.
up here talking about, y'all said I could come up here and I can't get in and get on Facebook talking crazy. You have to go register.
Register, man. The address, it is on that website.
777 Indiana Avenue, Indianapolis, Indiana 46202.
Yes.
Get there. What we'd like to do is closing remarks. Again, we just appreciate you coming. If you could give any lasting words of advice to those viewers out there, and then just tell them more about the event.
Absolutely. So the vision of the event, again, is how do you do this interaction, officer-citizen, in a way that gets everyone home safely with their dignity intact. We're really hoping that people come out, participate in this conversation, and then more importantly, and this is more importantly, participate in the initiatives after it. We got to figure out the baseline, but then we have to figure out how we make change in a way that's meaningful and lasting. So really would love to have you come out and be a part of that entire process.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Hey, thank you, brother, for coming. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you both.
A lot of knowledge, man.
Yes, sir. He
Laughed
had every question well.
Yeah, hey, listen, man. Hey, look, we put you back in the
Aaron made sure he said, look, I just want to say that I do not condone these conversations, but I'm going to tell you right here, come on out to the event, we're going to make this happen.
Is food going to be there? Because you know black folk and food, boy. I mean, you gotta have a bucket of chicken somewhere.
I appreciate that, but you know this was a low budget. Actually, they're making this thing free.
Bring your own food.
Bring your own food.
BYOF.
BYOF.
Hey, man, you gotta have some chicken, man, some rib tips, man, somewhere nearby, or
Tell you what, I hope this thing is such a success that people are throwing money at me for the next month.
Absolutely.
And then we're gonna get those chicken
Hey,
wings.
But you heard it here first.
Thursday there will be no food. I apologize.
Hey, BYOF.
Oh,
Bring your
man.
own food.
shout out to the viewers, man. You know, we love y'all, man, for your continued support. You know, look, I'll keep it brief, man. We have to bridge this gap, and what you're doing, you know, with this event, I mean, I see a lot of positive,
Absolutely.
progress, man. You know, that could, come from that. You know, and not all cops are bad. Not all cops are evil.
Absolutely.
Absolutely not.
We have to take, like what you said earlier, we have to take accountability for what we do.
Yes.
Get more informed with law and law enforcement, and just understand that there is a small percentage of people, especially cops, that are the bad fruit. But not all cops are bad. So we really have to change that narrative. And just grow from that, man. And just understand that, we have to do our part in trying to make this world better. Period.
There it is.
There it is. Thank you.
He wills. Hey, I just want to say thank you, Aaron Williamson, for pulling through. You came here and you answered all the questions. And if you guys have any other questions, still leave them in the comment section.
Please do.
Aaron can go back and watch this show and still answer those questions. It may seem like it's live, but it's not. But he's gonna go back and he can do that anyway. That's what I love about Facebook, is because I will get somebody watch the show 2 weeks from now, and then they'll be in their comments and everybody's still in there. I love it. It was 3 weeks ago, but they in there live. But that's the beauty of it. So if y'all could, if you still have any other questions in regards to the topic today, hit up Aaron Williamson at either on Facebook or come see him at the Police Interaction Accountability Forum on 10/5/2007, 6 to 8 p.m.
Absolutely.
At the Indianapolis Urban League, 777 Indiana Avenue, Indianapolis, Indiana 46202. Go register. Go register at the www.inbar.org. You got to do that, or you're gonna be standing outside listening through the windows.
Going off.
Listening through the windows.
Let me in. Let me in.
And you know who they're gonna call? They're gonna call Aaron. I got something to tell Aaron. They're gonna come get you.
I'll tell them to come to the Lake County one.
Now they're gonna call the cops for disorderly conduct.
But there it is, man. This discussion has been great, man. Again, we appreciate you coming through. Lots of good stuff, man. We hope to be there Thursday, at least for an hour. Come through and see what's going on.
Yep.
And inform the people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So shout out to the viewers. Y'all always rocking with us. We appreciate y'all. We will see y'all next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thursday. Sorry, Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday. Peace.
Peace.
Crazy, dude. Oh man. Tell you what, man, it got kind of hot.
Yeah, it
Man,
is.
for a minute, man.
It did get hot, didn't it?
Yeah, man.
Somebody turn the air off?
Probably Zell. Probably Zell if I turn it off. But hey, man, I'm freezing this mud.
Well, I do thank you both.
No problem, man. No problem, man. We're going to take us a picture real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it, man. Well, you handled yourself well, but I see why you're an attorney, man. You get in there and handle business. Answering 2-3 questions at a time.
Something.
Yeah.
And this might be a dumb question.
Nah,
Do you think that a person, there's an age limit for a person to go to law school?
Nah, I went when I was 33.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
How old are you now?
36.
Wow, man.
Yeah. Well, no, I take that back. It would have been 32.
Okay.
32, but yeah.
Because I was studying for my LSAT back in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, still trying to hoop and everything, and I just put it up, man. And, I'm 36 now, so.
I know people who were. I want to say Stephen would have probably been the oldest of our group, and he would have been